Good evening and welcome to this Friday night basic Buddhist teachings Dharma talk. I'm just going to read this book to you, and that way I don't have to say anything, make up stuff. Just a little bit, not much. I just realized I don't have my glasses, so I guess I can't. Will yours work okay?
You're about to find out.
Not too bad. The five dharmas. This is from the Lankavatara Sutra, which is a very amazing book. We've studied it here as a community, written in the what, 3rd century, something like that. Basic Yogacara teaching. Among the concepts used in this sutra, Lankavatara Sutra, to explain how the mind works and how we misperceive reality are the five dharmas: appearance, name, projection, correct knowledge, and suchness. The three modes of reality: imagined, dependent, and perfected. The 8 forms of consciousness, one for each of the 6 senses, the 6th being conceptual consciousness, a 7th for self-identity and reasoning, and an 8th for storing and distributing the seeds from the habit energy left behind by the operations of the 6th and 7th forms of consciousness, and 2 kinds of no self: the denial of self-existence concerning animate and inanimate objects for the last phase, and I have followed Gunabhadra's Chinese translations up to the end of this paragraph. The Sanskrit has Nairatma Advaya, no self and non-duality, for the relationships among these various concepts, and that goes on for more further reference. So kind of hard to remember all of that and pull forth. Easier just to read Red Pine's excellent translation, which not everybody cares for this, but I think it's extremely good. Thank you. I don't think I'll read any more of that. So we have, whoops, sorry. And this is sometimes in different orders, sometimes in the 5 dharmas, the appearance, name, and projection are in a certain order, but sometimes name comes first, and then projection comes later. And also in other ones, correct knowledge might come last, and suchness or tathata comes Sanskrit word, which means this, rearranged. So let's use this one. Appearance: things appear. Anything. You walk down the hallway and turn and you see something, it appears. We name it, or it's the name. We don't even name it. We just know that it's a rabbit, or we just know that it's a tree, or we know that it's a person. So that happens just, not, you would even call it a split second. It just happens at the same time, you could say. So it feels. Then projection, we project onto it. It's a bad rabbit. Rabbit shouldn't be there. This is the middle of the mall, and rabbits running down the mall. So we project onto it the specificity of that situation. Then, if we are a practitioner, then that particular division starts to come apart if there is a consciousness or awareness that has been training himself, herself, themselves to see clearly what this is and not necessarily believe, disbelieve, or ignore what arises. Then we have correct knowledge. In other words, we see that everything is dependently arisen. We actually see that this and this and this and this are not separate events or situations, that it's dependently arisen. And the final one of the 5 dharmas is suchness. And that suchness is in the entirety of the situation is seen just as it is. Time, the past, time, the future, and even the present completely collapse into just the direct perception of what this is. Fancy way of saying this is an illusion. And we are, most of the world, we might not be so as deluded by it as most of the world, but the world is deluded by this. This is why there's so many wars and so much fighting and people being right and accusing other people of causing problems or issues. So I can go back and forth on that, but I'd like to go to the 3 natures next. and the three natures. And I realize these concepts are good. There's a lot of room for questioning in there, and I will do my best to respond to those. I don't know if I can answer, but I can certainly respond. The three natures, sometimes called the three own beings, and it shows up in other texts besides the Lanka. The dependently risen. In other words, everything is dependent on everything else. Sometimes the imaginary nature is talked about first, parakalpita, and then paratantra, dependently risen, and then parinishvana, or the perfected nature. So the way this works, and I'll do my best to talk about it, something arises and it's just dependently risen. But then we think things about it. We come to conclusions about it. We like it, we don't like it, it should be, it shouldn't be, and all the other stories around it. And this happens in all the time, all day long. Our whole life is just full of something happening, and then we add on our own preconceptions, concepts, judgments, prejudice, and imaginary nature to it. We invent things about it. And we feel like that's what's in front of us, not the dependently risen, which has no personhood in it at all. We add on the personhood. I'm over here, and I'm seeing that over there. The very nature of duality is believing in that illusion. You go a little further, and then I can go backwards and forwards in a little bit. The perfected nature is if you see through your awareness practice, through your spiritual path, you begin to see that what is dependently risen and what is imagined, that those two together are seen to be not what they are cracked up to be. You begin to see that that's unreal, and see that things are not what you thought they were. And this seeing is the perfected nature. There's no past in it. There's no future in it. There's no, the otherness is gone. You could say it's bleached of the otherness. It's the traditional way of talking about it is that it is empty of other. I can go a little further, but are there questions at this point about any of those three or the first five? Yes.
Mozuku bowing. Is thusness anything other than appearance without the imagined parts?
Thusness or suchness, very similar. It's different words, but it's same tatata as the Sanskrit. Like the word tatagata is the womb of one who comes thusly. Garba means womb, tatata means thusness.
What's the difference between thusness and appearance? The first and the fifth terms.
The appearance looks, we still think that that's something that's really there, it's happening. And thusness, we see that it's neither real nor is it unreal. No position on it. That's why it's so difficult. That's why the ego cannot wrap his or her mind around this, because it's looking for a reference point. It wants to know, is this real or is this an illusion? We only teach that it's an illusion to get you or anyone to release your grip on whatever is happening in your life as some actual real situation that you need to stop, you need to control, you need to blame, you need to, and to see that it's unreal. That doesn't mean it's not there. That doesn't mean that it's so unreal that it's like you walked out of the movie theater. That movie may go on the rest of your life. Or
Mozuku bowing. The appearance of movement, of something being in, here now and there later.
yes,
Is that is that not thusness? Is that part of the illusion?
that is the belief or the opinion or the idea or the witnessing that something moves, and then the commentary that something happened, something moved. Very convincing. It seems very real, but we're not trying to necessarily talk you out of it. I'm certainly not. I'm saying, look at the illusion. Look at the hitting on the table. Look at the intense feeling of regret or the intense feeling of fear of something happening, look right at it without adding, subtracting, or dividing if you can.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, divine,
No.
in that same area, the difference between appearance and suchness. You say that nothing happens, we are covering up our enlightenment. So are you saying that we can already see that things are not separate?
You're looking at that, but that's where the imaginary nature comes in, that figures something out about it or takes a position on it or say it shouldn't be, or it's different than that, or it should be red, it's too blue, needs more red, needs more this. Some kind of imaginary calculations around it to try to do what? Protect ourselves from the unknown, protect ourselves from, because we feel threatened by things we don't understand or we don't know. So we try to create some kind of relative structure for it that is more workable for us, but less threatening. Go ahead.
Oh, divine, so are you saying though, when nothing actually changes or actually happens, when something appears, that we can see suchness, but we leave it for the imagination?
Yes, you see it. But there's not an instant of it. It's just Trungpa Rinpoche used to occasionally say to people, first thought, best thought, because he knew that his students, that people would be very close, they would see something and then they would immediately cover it over with ideas, concepts, beliefs, opinions, and judgment. They were just trying to help someone see that when you first see something, before the thoughts begin to arise, that you're probably pretty close to what it actually is in terms of the illusion of being real and unreal at the same time.
Well, divine, so then is that kind of the order mix up in that it could be suchness, then appearance, suchness, and then we project and
So we had it the other way around. It's but the fourth one, or the fourth one is Buddha knowledge. You have an understanding, you're beginning to have an understanding of dependent origination. So you're being able to look at it conceptually, and even it's beginning to have some insight into it being unreal. So when you're studying the Dharma, this is starting to arise, starting to have knowledge about this. If that's all, if you never see suchness, then you just teach out of your knowledge of it, which could be powerful and you could be very erudite scholar. There are scholars who, there's no way you can, they seem enlightened, but are they? I don't know. I don't give enlightenment tests to anyone. But I'm saying that it's possible to get so tightened up or tied down into your concepts about something that replaces the ultimate understanding, which is the suchness. Or you cut through to use the three natures, you cut through the imaginary, so that's very low ebb, and you're starting to see dependent origination. The things are impersonal. Quite often scientists get into this, just like
Koshin?
huh?
Koshin?
You say that? Yes. Koshin. I started to say his other name. Like Koshin was mentioning earlier, that science is actually doing it. It's actually getting into the dependent origination part and starting to see, yeah, these are just structures that are coming together, and people add on their commentary. So there's some Buddha knowledge or some awakened knowledge happening in a conceptual area. That's my way of understanding it. If Red Pine came along, the translator of this text, he might say, oh, no, Sokuzan, all wrong, possible. But I would listen to him. This is how it looks. Suchness is a direct perception of emptiness. It's a direct perception of what this is. There's no perceiver. There's nothing perceived. That's why it's called emptiness. It's empty of itself and it's empty of other. And what do I say over and over again? I've been saying it for years. Have you been listening to me? Don't believe anything I say. You find out, it's your heart. It's your consciousness, you find out. You don't have to believe in Buddhism. You don't have to listen to this old teacher. The only thing I'm saying that I highly recommend that you do is you find out who you are. Don't get your identity from me, from Buddhism, from philosophy, from politics, from culture, from your mom and dad, and get it from nobody. Find out, go within. Find out so you have no doubts about it. This might take years. This more than likely would take years.
When you're bowing, is direct perception without concept bowing?
Yes, there's just perception only. Vijnapti matra. Vijnapti matra is the Sanskrit for just perception. No perceiver, no identity there. It's just perception. Just happens to have a temporary locality within a human form. But this won't last. This is going away. It's called death. But that which perceives is not going anywhere. Go ahead.
When you're bowing, so in a practical sense, is direct perception a constant perception?
Yes, it doesn't begin, it can't end. Only something that begins can end. It's something that never starts, cannot stop. But it can be covered up by delusion, by hope, by fear, by wanting to manipulate yourself or your life or your world or your children for that matter. Go ahead.
When you're bowing, so just trying to get to direct perception is without concept.
Yes,
And yet in that direct perception, you know to walk through a door and not a window.
yes.
What is that?
You see you're discriminating awareness. You know, you don't have to think about it. You just know that that's a window and that's a door. You don't walk through the window.
So there's no concept door, window?
When the next time you go out of a door, do you think the word door first? It's the door. Wait, the windows, that's gotta be a window because there's no knob on it. You don't go into any of that. You just know, you live your life completely directly. You don't even realize that you're always consciousness only. The only one who's going to realize that is someone who has realized their true nature deep in their heart, not the blood pumping area, but the deep in the consciousness. You realize that, you look like any other Joe Blow walking around. Or Mary Travers, which is one of the singers. Remember her, Mary Travers? It's just her. She's just living her life. But she's not thinking about doors and windows, but she never misjudges one for the other or misidentifies. And yet she can be living completely in reality. And the body mind, her body mind, or anybody's body mind just suddenly comes to an end. That consciousness does not go anywhere. It does not vanish with the body unless that consciousness believes they are a body. Then they're going down with that body, and they might think they're dead. They might think and they also might do it in such a way that they don't realize they're dead and might end up haunting a building. Yeah, I'm not telling you anything you haven't heard of before. I'm not asking you to believe me. Do whatever you want to do with your life. I do. But consciousness, whatever font, if it needs to be a ghost, it can do that. If it needs to be a deity, it can do that. If it needs to be a Buddha, it can do that. Consciousness always finds its own form. This is the first precept, or not precept, but the first tenet of this Sokuzan monastery, which is the order of immediate light. Always finds it, and no matter how weird or how outlandish or how painful, it's going to find that. More.
In your mind, I'm just stuck on. At some point, as kids or children, we're taught doors and windows. I mean, I'm being kind of silly, but
We are.
so indirect perception that's already part of what we know.
It is.
So are you saying that once we have that concept in hand, it doesn't get in the way of direct perception?
The only time anything gets in the way of direct perception, if it's demanded or if it's grasped, fixated on, locked down on, or you go to war to try to get more of that. As long as there's it's just fluid. You just get on the merry-go-round, the wind blows, the wind doesn't blow. Whatever happens, receive. This is what this practice that we were learning for the last hour ago. Sit down, hold still. All the senses are open on receive, and just receive so that your awareness becomes very, very strong. And your thinking process, it gets less and less muscle bound over time. Yes.
Ozuku bowing. If you didn't have a name for it, but you'd eaten a blueberry, you could just know that something else was also that thing you ate, even though it's really not the same thing. Is that kind of just knowing what that is? Is that distinct from a concept? Does the concept go further somehow?
So you mean, is the taste and concept the same thing?
Or just recognizing a blueberry without necessarily having the name for it, but just knowing, oh yeah, that's that thing I ate before.
Yeah, but there'd be no, oh yeah. Well,
But just knowing it.
Oh yeah, it's conceptual. You just know it. There would not be nothing extra there. Yeah, very, very, very good question. I'm not trying to mock you or anything. I'm just saying, but there's an area there where the concepts can come in and somewhat interfere with your direct perception of what's happening. That usually happens if there's a lot of emphasis on the ego being in danger, needs protecting. You're getting too much criticism from the world around you, from your parents for that matter, or from your partner, or from your neighbor. And then the concepts come up to try to protect you from being hurt or being made fun of or being embarrassed. But when it comes to the blueberry, you could actually eat a blueberry without knowing what it is. It might even taste better because your concepts about it wouldn't be in the way of the taste.
Ozuku bowing, does it take a concept to have a blueberry in each hand and know that
Those are pretty big
somehow they're the
blueberries. Where are you getting
same?
those at? See the size?
All right, they're both in the sand. You're
Oh.
right. I don't need two hands.
What do you want to know?
Does it take a concept to consider those to be somehow the same?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're wanting to know, but I don't think concepts are only necessary relatively in the situation that you're in. Sometimes we need some concepts to say there's a banana and a blueberry, or box of blueberries, or a dish of blueberries. We need the word and the concept to be able to say, I want blueberries, I don't want bananas. So, but it's very situational, extremely practical. Yes.
Ozuku bowing. It seems like I can cover up how a situation is different, or how a person that I think I know is different from one minute to the next by thinking I know what that is. So I'm interested to know where the concept comes in, where that projection comes in, and where it's just seeing it.
Comes in as soon as you feel insecure or frightened. We immediately rely on the concepts, which have to do with judgment, evaluation, explanation, description. We rely on that. This is what is projection. There's appearance, then there's name, which is tied into concepts, of course, and then there's we project onto that what that is. That's this. It's that blueberries. Or it's not blueberries. We do this all day long. Rarely do we get into an area where it's the correct knowledge or substance. Those are 4 and 5. That takes a lot of awareness practice. It's not saying I'm condemning you or anyone else to the projection area. I do this all day long. Otherwise, I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't teach this if I weren't at the mercy of the very thing that I'm talking about, which is what? Delusion. Why do you think I wasn't deluded? I don't
You
have
look like a rabbit to me for
I
a
look a
second
rabbit?
with the face.
Wait a minute, I look like a rabbit? This is very suspicious.
Is that a projection?
Let me check with Zeb. Zeb, I look like a rabbit? He gave me that Midwestern mudra. Which means, what does that mean? Little bit. A little bit, yes.
When
rabbit-like,
you're
yeah.
bowing,
Yes,
how are you at the mercy of delusion?
because I see, I'm looking at the illusion, sometimes I get deluded by it. And I think that something is real and it's actually happening. That's what I'm teaching. And I'm encouraging you to see that so that you don't torture yourself and make yourself miserable in your life by believing and buying into that delusion. More if you haven't.
And you've always, so what's behind, what's seeing that delusion?
Just consciousness. Just consciousness only sees that. Just because we're all here and I'm holding forth as a Dharma teacher and saying, you're deluded by the illusion. The only way I know about that is because I'm deluded by the illusion.
But what is it to be at the mercy of delusion?
To think it's real. And to think that you have to stop it or you have to protect yourself against that guy who did this or said that or acted this way. And you can do that for the rest of the week or the 3 years, have resentment for somebody who doesn't even know you're mad at them because you have a story about them, because you're deluded about it. And why do we do that? Because the ego needs protection. And it'll settle for some kind of artifice called fiction in order to feel some kind of temporary protection. As I said, I can't teach this unless I'm at the mercy of the delusion myself. What's the old picture? If you want to know the way up the mountain, talk to somebody who goes up and down it all day long. That's a definition of a Dharma teacher. One of them. Go ahead.
When you're bowing, that word mercy. What is it to be at the mercy of something?
Be at the mercy of your thoughts and beliefs is that even though you see intellectually that things are kind of makeshift and made up, still they feel so real. They're painful. You're at the mercy of those thoughts, those emotions, those beliefs. And we tend to hurt ourselves. Well, we hurt ourselves and then we hurt others because we blame others about how we're feeling. You know what I mean? Everyone here knows a little bit about what I'm saying. Yeah.
When you're bowing, are we at the mercy of our karma?
To some extent, you can't just say, well, I don't want to be a white guy anymore. I think I want to be Afro-American. Oh, you're at the mercy of whatever came into this realm out of consciousness with your mom and dad and that karma. So to some extent, yes. But you're not locked down on it by it necessarily. You wouldn't be in this room if there weren't some kind of openness to being able to see your true nature, not just become a Buddhist. I'm not here to convert anybody to Buddhism. You need Buddhism to be a Buddhist or to be a monk, then you won't be able to help it. You'll have to do that. More about it if you have it. Good question. Yes.
Well, Sokuzan, the beginning, you said you just know it's a rabbit. You perceive something
Where?
shows up. It was in the hallway and then later it was in a mall. Pretty sure.
What color was it?
Mine was white. What color was it?
I didn't see you, rabbit. Go ahead. What's your question?
My question is
He's trying to trick me. Go ahead.
that kind of just knowing it's a rabbit without necessarily naming it. When is knowing what something is covering up what it actually is?
Every time. Anytime you know what something is, that's a cover up. Thank you for that. You have to feel this here. Otherwise, it sounds like, what? Why would you know something is? How could that possibly? Thinking, processing, evaluating. If you know what this is, you fundamentally know what this is. You won't, there'll be no words for that. because you can't see anything, and here it comes. You really can't see anything else. There isn't anything else. This world, this illusion is empty of other. If you see anything at all, you just see more of yourself. Looking at another person's face is like looking at the back of your hand. It's not the same, but it's like that. That's how close you are to everyone. It doesn't mean, even if the person has been a lunatic or a terrible, evil person, they're still a human being. They still have emotions and feelings, and they still have karma that they've had to deal with. So this doesn't mean you're going to go and let them all out of prison because they're, you're not stupid, you're nuts. They have their karma, and that karma can be very violent and dangerous. But they don't, just the idea of punishing them, that's a misunderstanding. We should protect ourselves from people who are insanely crazy, violently insane. Protect yourself, but not punish them. You need to help them. Well, rarely do we do that. What country is it that does help their criminals? Is it Denmark? Denmark, or it's
Oh, Finland.
I think Finland does. They're a little bit more respectful for the people who are insane. Go ahead.
Mozuku bowing. I lost my question. I got.
Okay.
I'll come back to it. Thank you.
Rabbit question?
Well, it became a door question, and then we went into prison, and now I'm considering that.
Okay. I'm with you. Again, don't you have a question?
Hogan bowing, not right now. Thank you. Bowing.
Anyone else?
Navid bowing.
Navid, I
Navid
need.
bowing.
Go ahead.
Yes. Does that which perceives, does that have a shape or form? Bowing.
No. Though it could take on somewhat the shape of what it is perceiving. But fundamentally, no, there's no shape or form.
Navid bowing. Is that consciousness only?
Yes. Those are concepts that refer to a way of describing that. We need to say something about it. Otherwise, there can't be a teaching. The Sanskrit is Vinyapti or Vijnapti Matra, consciousness only, from the Yogacara tradition coming out of the second, third century teachings of Vasubandhu and his brother. What was his brother's name? Vasanga.
Navid bowing.
Yes, sir.
So what makes it take a form? Bowing.
It seems to take a form out of dependent origination and out of Paratantra, out of this depends on that, depends on that. So sometimes things just start to show up as forms. And so to one who is looking at this and receiving this and no longer at war with anything, they just observe that. They don't draw conclusions out of anything.
Navid bowing.
Go ahead, please.
Is there a moment or is there a moment when consciousness only doesn't have a form or doesn't take a form? I was wondering what happens to it after we die.
So I don't know, I haven't died yet, as far as I know. But it looks like it could continue to take forms of different kinds from what I've looked into in that area, but also it can just return to its fundamental nature, which might be similar to light than anything else. No, it isn't necessarily light. We're not talking about the visual light that comes from the sun, not that kind of light, but it might be similar to light. Just a way of talking about it. Don't believe anything I say. Find out yourself. I don't know anything. Yes.
Mozuku bowing, you said knowing what something is covers up what it actually is.
Yes.
seeing what this is and knowing what a door is two different types of knowing?
Yes, a relative knowledge is, this is an index card, and this is another index card. Isn't that clear? So it's a relative kind of knowing. But if we try to use that relative kind of knowing to go in and talk about the nature of consciousness, you can make some progress in that area. You can use the appearance, things appear. We give them names. We project onto them. And then going a little bit further, we talk about there being a kind of knowledge that is correct as opposed to incorrect. So getting out on a limb there is getting pretty relative. Then we come up with a fancy word like suchness or tatata or mahamudra or dzogchen. So many fancy words in Sanskrit, Tibetan, or whatever. They're trying to point at something that someone apparently understood something and wanted to teach it or transmit it to others, and so came up with names for it. But the fundamental understanding has no names. And yeah, I would go a little further, and you've heard me say this before, and we can respond to questions around this, but it's very important to know that your awakening or my awakening will not be an experience. Experiences, won't use that. Here's an experience. An experience comes, shows up, and then it goes. It's gone. It's called impermanence. Awakening does not go away because it has not appeared. It's not an experience. If you try to go in there, if you're speaking out of what you're looking at, which I'm telling you, and I've been telling you for years, that's what I'm doing. I don't think about it. That's why I keep saying, come and ask questions, put me on the spot if you can. If you have the acumen or the logic or the reason or something, please come. I will, if you are smarter than I am, which probably 90% of the people in this room are, you will succeed. Well, you understand what I said? Paraphrase what I said.
Awakening's not an experience because
Not
it
an
can't
experience.
arise and fall away.
Very good. It's experiential. There's something to it that is experiential, but it's not something you can collect as evidence. I must be awake because, or I must be getting close because. Yes,
And your mind is awakening Buddha nature.
that would be a word for it. Yes. Awakened nature, awakened truth, that which is awake. What happens is you stop sleeping, but it's not an experience of awakening. It's seeing that you've always been, you can't really stop sleeping because then we're back to relative truth again. You realize you've never slept. The realization is beyond the prison of this delusion. Go ahead.
And your mind, so is it seeing the cover-ups that we have been believing in?
Yes, that's where the Buddha, the correct knowledge starts to come in. You start to see that we've been fooling ourselves or bullshitting ourselves into thinking that this was true, that was true, this was true, and we begin to realize that conceptually all of that is just made up, makeshift. And then you could say after, if it helps, but then eventually all that comes apart and you just see it. You just see it. And you may be able to back into language to be able to teach, but you're not, what you're looking at, there are no words for it. You usually, as if you function as a teacher, you use the words of the question.
Zuko bowing. I'm kind of asking the same question over and over. What is just seeing it without a concept about it? Is that different from just seeing a doorway without a concept about it and being able to function?
It's close to that. Very good question. It's close to that, except seeing a doorway without a concept about it, you're not aware that you're doing that. You're actually walking through a door without knowing you're walking through a door. Because there's no concept, you're just walking through it. You're going from the hallway, down the hallway, into the kitchen, through the kitchen, into the bathroom. And your mind is, who knows where it's at, but it's not in that room. It's not in that hallway. Very, very close. So I'm talking out of what I'm looking at. I'm in that hallway, always. Yeah, headed for the bathroom. That's what she's laughing, probably.
No, the rabbit.
Oh, you're back to the rabbit? Well, there's only 5 people smiling and the rest of people either have masks on or frowning, or all I can see is their avatar. And there's 22 screens open. Well, go ahead.
Mozuku bowing, if you are seeing what's showing up, seeing the appearance without concepts about it,
Yes,
seems like, as you just said, you would either just not really be aware of what was around you,
yes,
or you'd need an enlightenment ward because you wouldn't.
no, just the opposite. You're not crazy. You're not crazy in the way the world is crazy. You're crazy from the point of view of the world because you have no past and future. You don't even have now. Even that's unreal. You're actually consciousness only. You're not a separate being. It's not a bragging point. Oh, I'm this wonderful enlightened being who has no separate self. There's no story about anything. It's not an experience. The closest word that would come to it, it's a direct perception of what this is. And it's empty of what you see. It's empty of what you think it is and full of what it actually is. And what is it full of? Full of everything. Anytime I look at your face or her face or my own face in a mirror, I see everything. And it's not some kind of a whoop-de-doo experience. It's ordinary. It's just an ordinary feeling that you see everything all at once. The Tibetans have a word for that. It's called 2 words, Tamo Geshepa, ordinary mind. It's an ancient teaching that once was kept secret. Ordinary mind. It's possible for you to see that. Whether you want to do that or not, it's up to you. It's hard work. Looking at your mind day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute, second after second. Hard work. Yes.
And you're bowing, so is it an awareness of that ordinary mind?
What shows up is that you're looking at something that's absolutely extraordinary, that it's just like looking at the atomic structure of everything all at once, and yet it's ordinary because it's just the truth. So it doesn't have any spectacular opposition to it, like some kind of contrast as to, well, I used to see this and this, but now I see that. No, there's no past and future. Nothing has happened.
So
Yeah.
what makes it the truth?
Consciousness. Consciousness. It's a word that is, you say it's awareness, you could say it's consciousness. And as I would say to anyone here, anyone listening, don't believe. I might not even have to say that. You might already be saying, of course, I'm not going to believe that stuff. But do it yourself, see it yourself. The only thing I have to say here that is very important is you can see this yourself if you have an interest. If you don't, then I'm sure you have a wonderful life to live. Go live it. Do whatever you want to do with your life. No requirement. So perhaps we can close. I think we have a community meeting. Yeah, we have a community meeting at 8 o'clock, so we'll close for now. And we'll have our community meeting. And thank you so much for your questions. I appreciate it so much. And I can't really do this without your help. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Stand and go to keep the marathon.
May this penetrate into all places so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho san chi shi hu. Shi son bu sa mo ko sa. Mo ko the 10 directions of 3 times, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita.
The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokukoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.